Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Beth, and today's video is dedicated to Moira Cosmetics. So if you're not familiar with Moira, they have been, I think, gaining a lot of traction recently in the beauty community, and I think they're most well known for producing really great products at a very affordable price point. So I took advantage of their Memorial Day sale to finally try out a lot of their products, especially as they had just released their liquid contours that I was especially interested in. So if you'd like to see kind of how I achieved this look and the products that I tried from Moira, then just keep watching. Okay, so let me show you guys what I got. So I wanted to do the, I guess, unboxing on camera because the way they packaged everything was just so satisfying to me. They had one of the flat rate USPS plastic bags on the outside with the shipping label and everything, but anyway, they had this plastic bag and then everything is wrapped in bubble wrap. So I haven't gotten into this yet. And I didn't get a full face. I thought about it, but I don't know. I just didn't feel the need. I thought I would just kind of focus on products either that were new or their best sellers or ones that I had heard other YouTubers talk about favorably. I'm trying to minimize the bubble wrap noise, but yeah, they just wrapped this around a bunch of times. Okay, so it looks like the palette I bought is in its own little bubble wrap, the powder, and then there is a bag with everything else. Like I said, very, very satisfying, although removing the outer bubble wrap was a little annoying. So I was saying that, yeah, I watched a few YouTubers' videos on what products they thought were kind of must-haves, and I'll try to mention those YouTubers as I go through. For example, Jen Phelps really talked about this Moira Set and Correct finishing powder, so I'll be using that. I think she also talked about the eyeshadow palette. So I watched her video. I watched one from, I think, State of Kate, Angelica Nyqvist, and Lauren Made Beauty. I watched videos from all of those creators. So this is the Moira Endless Moonlight palette in their Celestial series. And I think Patty did a full face, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, this has a very fun, kind of interesting packaging to it. It's a little bulky, so storage could be slightly annoying. This is the color story. Of course, I'm relieved that everything is intact. They have some fun embossing on these shades. So yeah, so I got one of those palettes to try out their eyeshadow formula. And then I got two of their cream blushes. I got the shades I Have You and I Trust You. I think Lauren May swatched all of these. So I think these are kind of supposed to be a dupe or inspired by, if you like, the Tower 28 blushes, or at least they have similar packaging. So I will have timestamps down below for each product if you just want to jump ahead. So yeah, if you haven't seen it, that is what the Moira packaging looks like, and this is the Tower 28 packaging. This is the shade Magic Hour, which perhaps is not a dupe for either of the two shades I got from Moira, but anyway, the packaging I think is very similar and the formula is supposed to be similar. So I like the Tower 28 well enough, and I did a full dedicated video to Tower 28, which I will link for you. So I got one of their Starshow shadow pots. I think this is one of the products that gets the most attention. I got it in the shade Showtime. So yeah, that'll be interesting. I've heard these compared to the Hourglass scattered light shadows. So one of these that has a little press in it. I'm not sure how I will incorporate this with the eyeshadow palette, but we'll see. So I got that, and then I also got one of their cream shadows. I got the shade Orion. Again, I'm not sure how I will incorporate all of these today, but yeah, that is the cream shadow. I'm not the biggest kind of cream shadow person, but I figured I might as well try it out. And then this was the product that kind of inspired this purchase, or finally tipped me over the edge, because I've been hearing about Moira for months, I guess. So this is their Face Sculpt Liquid Contour, and I am very much a fan of liquid and cream contours, and in particular, this reminded me a lot of the KVD contour. So this is the Moira shade in 100 Fair Light, and it's not quite the same component as the KVD, which it reminded me of. This has 17 mil, and of course this is by weight instead of volume. Anyway, this is 5 grams. So yeah, I thought it might be fun to compare it to the KVD. I might do kind of one side with the KVD and one side with the Moira. And then I also went ahead and got the shade 200 Soft Warm just to try out the difference. And this Faircool 90 has kind of been my shade in the KVD. I recently, I think, got a new one from Ipsy, and then I also picked up the shade Light Warm 80. So I wanted to kind of have that frame of reference for comparison. And they had also released these, what are they called? Apparently Moira is the goddess of destiny, is that true? I just saw it on the package. Yeah, so these were quite interesting to me. These are pretty new as well. So I kind of wanted to do some comparisons both between those products, and also in addition to the KVD, I've used like the Hindash color fluid, I think it is, yeah, in Carve. And I also have the Danessa Myricks Pigment, what are these called? Vision Flush and Nutcracker. So these to me all kind of seem kind of similar products in theory. So I wanted to grab those. I got 2 lip liners. One is their signature lip pencil and one is the must-have lip liner. So I'll try to swatch those for you guys. I think State of Kate in particular really preferred one over the other. One formula over the other anyway. And then, like I said, I didn't get a full face, but I got a lot. Jen Phelps, I think, had recommended this micro tip liquid liner, so I picked this up. Generally not a huge liquid liner person, but the fact that it's a micro tip, if anything can help me do a liquid wing, a micro tip would probably be it. I got 2 of the lip glosses, which I heard good things about. So these shades Beloved and Queenly. So some things I got a couple shades of, which kind of pushed the overall price of my order up. But I figured I was more interested in trying a few different shades and different formulas rather than just get a full face. Especially, I think Patty Alonso had talked about, and I agree with her, it was kind of difficult with their foundations. I wasn't sure that they had a shade that would work for me. And I think even their concealer, which Jen Phelps had talked about, it just didn't seem like there was a shade that I would really enjoy. So I just decided not to go that way. But yeah, I got 2 lip oils in the shades Only Smooches and Au Naturel. And then the last 2 products here, I got an eyeshadow primer, in part because I was buying a palette, and I also had to toss my Fenty primer because it was getting old. So I've just been kind of playing around with some different ones. So I decided I would pick theirs up as well. And the last product I just put down was the CC Prep Concealer. So I know I just said, like, with the concealers and their standard kind of concealer shades, there didn't look to be one that would be super ideal for me. But this is like a color correcting. So I think there were only like 5 or 6 shades. And in addition to liquid and cream contours, I am very much a corrector person when it comes to concealer. So I thought I would try this one out. And of course I have some ones to compare it to. And honestly, this looks like it could even be just a flat out concealer match for me. So I will be trying that out as well. So that's the overview of everything I picked up. All in all, I spent with tax about $125. They had a deal where I think if you spent over $75, you got 25% off as part of their Memorial Day sale. So I took advantage of that. Okay, so I don't have any makeup on. I just applied before I started filming the Make Reverse Emulsion as kind of a primer. So I have that, and then I also applied the Benefit Gimme Brow in my brows, but I haven't applied any other products to my face. And I think because I'm not sure about fallout with this palette and these products, I think I will start with my eyes first. So going in first with the eyeshadow primer. Conveniently, they do include prices on their packing sheet. So I think this is $8 full price. I did spend a fair amount, but I got a fair amount as well. So Moira is a more affordable brand. So just going in with the eye primer. It doesn't look like this is the kind that really does any color cancellation. It's just more of a sheer kind of product, which I can go either way. I don't need my primer to actively give me any color correction. Okay, so let's try this Endless Moonlight palette. I was debating in my head whether I should start with the cream shadow and then put powder shadow on top of it, but I'm just gonna go in with the powder shadow, and it does have a kind of plastic sheet on it. Mirror's decent. So this palette, by the way, retails for $17.50. So not terrible when it comes to a, what is it, 15 pan eyeshadow palette. So I'm gonna go in with that shade Sugar Love with my Sigma E50, and good amount of pigment there. I like to start out with a kind of cream shadow to kind of set the primer and act as a base. Sometimes if the palette I'm using doesn't include a shade like this, I'll just use my face powder. Okay, so that definitely had a good amount of pigment. And then, I don't really have a particular like end goal in mind here. I'm gonna go in with that shade Modern. I'll start off with a Sonia G Mini Booster. I have to say, the embossing isn't really, probably can't see it as well in that Sugar Love shade, but the embossing isn't really going anywhere. And yeah, these do have a good amount of pigment. I like to start off with a smaller crease or blender brush first, just so I can kind of build up the intensity and kind of figure out what the shadow is doing. And then I'll go in with the Sonia G Classic crease once I have a handle on it and I can work to kind of blend and diffuse. And then from there, I'll go in again with that smaller brush, and I think I'll try that dark brown shade Focus in the middle. And because I've hooded eyes, I like to kind of make sure that crease shade is going on the eyelid space a little bit above my natural crease to kind of keep my eyes as open as possible. This one is perhaps a little kind of dusty. You might want to be careful with how much you have on the brush. So going back into Modern with that classic crease. Yeah, that brown I think got a little bit out of hand. If I really want to tame it, I will go back into that cream shade. Kind of focus mostly just under the brow, almost as like a brow highlight. And then just checking to see if everything is kind of even. Okay, I think that's good enough. I could probably spend 30 minutes blending that, but anyway. And then let's see, I think I want to lean into the bronziness of this to hopefully use this on top. So I think I'm going to use Time and Space, which is that one right there. And this is just a dry, rougher number 28 brush. Not bad for a dry brush. And then on the inner kind of third or so, I want to go in with that shade Legend. So I'll just kind of flip the brush to the other side. I just washed my brushes last night, so I can feel it kind of falling down a little bit, and then just kind of go over the middle to kind of blend. I have to say, I'm pretty happy with that level of payoff for a dry brush, especially going onto a powdered base. But I think I want to see what happens if I do wet the brush. So just taking some MAC Fix Plus, and I just tap it on my hand a little bit so I get off any kind of excess. I don't want to go into a shade with a kind of sopping wet brush. So a little bit more kind of high impact with a wet brush, but I'm doing the same with that Legend shade. So really pretty kind of bronzy, grungy eye. I think I might call it there for the kind of eyeshadow palette, but of course I will use this glitter topper shadow in the shade Showtime. And I'm just going to use my fingers for this. Ooh. Yeah, it is soft. I can definitely kind of press into it. So let's see how this does. Again, feeling some fallout. It does add some nice shine to it. I don't know if this is the absolute best shadow to pair with this look, but I think it works. Really pretty if you kind of like that high impact molten metallic look to your lips. Okay, so that is the shade just swatched on my hand, really beautiful. And I thought I would just quickly compare it to some other kind of pot shadows. So I mentioned the Hourglass Reflect shadow. Yeah, this one still I can kind of press into, but this is the shade Reflect. Pretty similar, not exact, but pretty similar. You can see when I turn my hand a little bit that the Reflect is a little bit lighter. I have the Victoria Beckham Lid Luster in Chiffon. So that is Chiffon. The Moira does look like it might have a little bit more sparkle, but I don't know if I'm just imagining things. And then finally I have the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk little jewel pot. I don't know if they still make these or not. And I'm not saying these are kind of color dupes or anything like that, but yeah, the Charlotte Tilbury is a little bit kind of more sheer, more of a sheer wash. Hopefully you can see a little bit of the texture difference there. So anyway, pretty happy with that. And then let me swatch the cream shadow while I'm at it. I think the shade Orion does tend to be one of the more popular shades. So I've heard kind of mixed things as to whether these crease or not, and I do tend to have kind of more creasy lids. But yeah, that is the shade Orion. And those would be, I think, a really pretty pairing as well. So whenever I pick out a lot of makeup like this to kind of do, I guess, a brand overview, that kind of thing, I like to obviously pick out products that I think will complement one another. And I'm just going to have glitter kind of on my hand now. I tried to kind of clean up some of the stuff that was on my face. I might apply just a little bit more of this Make Emulsion. Sometimes when I do my eyes first, because I am concerned that the shadows will have fallout, I will apply eye masks or something underneath my eyes to hopefully catch some of it. But yeah, I think my cheeks tend to be the driest part of my face, so I want to make sure that's well hydrated. And speaking of hydration, I think I will go ahead and try out these lip oils. Usually I like to apply a lip oil while I'm doing my makeup, and I don't know if you can see, I have some redness at the corners of my mouth. I think it's eczema, so I need to work on that. But yeah, those are the two shades, pretty similar. Only Smooches is maybe a tad more kind of mauve, if you will. Pretty thick there. So only Smooches and Au Naturel. So I think I'll go ahead and apply Au Naturel. And again, this is the lip oil, the Luminizing Lip Gloss. Go ahead and swatch those next to it. So that is the shade Beloved. I think the lip oils actually seem to be a bit thicker and stickier, which is generally, I think, the opposite of what you think of when it comes to lip oils and lip glosses. The lip oils did launch more recently though. Okay, so that is the shades Queenly and Beloved. So I think Queenly, Beloved, and then Au Naturel and Smooches, whatever that shade was. So those are all the kind of lip products. The doe foot is different with the lip glosses. It's that flat style versus the kind of curve of the lip oil. I don't know. I haven't, done a deep dive on the ingredients or anything. It's a little kind of tacky and everything, but not too bad. I guess it's a kind of tacky that you feel like it's going to stick around for a little bit. So I'll probably take off this lip oil and apply a lip pencil and gloss at the end of the video. So I'll just let that hang out for a little bit. So for the CC Color, what is it called? CC Prep Concealer. Normally what I do with my color corrector is I apply it before I apply my foundation. So I thought I would go ahead and try that with this product, even though I'm not totally sure how this is going to work as a color corrector. So I'll just kind of put some, okay. It's a little peachier than I thought it was in the tube. And again, I will do some swatches, comparisons. So yeah, so a little bit peachy, but it is kind of a nice light peach. Let me go ahead and blend this out a little bit. It's not quite as I guess hydrating as I thought it would be either. So that's the kind of before and after with the color corrector right there. So I just thought by way of comparison, I have been really enjoying the Tarte color corrector in the pink shade. That you can see is a lot lighter. I think better coverage as well, which is not necessarily a good or bad thing. Sometimes it just depends on your skin tone. Like the peach color corrector from Tarte, I think for my skin tone is actually a little bit too rich. This is the e.l.f. corrector in peach, I believe. And I still want to kind of do a Tarte versus e.l.f. comparison. But yeah, just so you can kind of get a sense of differences in pigmentation. I also pulled the NARS corrector in light. Swatch that. This one has like a little brush. It's not my favorite. Yeah, so you can kind of see how orange it can really go. So as far as tone on my skin tone, it's not bad at all. Let me just swatch this. It's a different kind of formulation, but I think in terms of being a light peach, you can see I've definitely gotten my use out of this product. I'd say the Charlotte Tilbury is even a little peachier, but it's a cream product. Kind of similar depth of color, I would say, but yeah, in the packaging and everything, I thought it was going to be a little bit closer to the Tarte, which I can sometimes, I think, get away with not putting a concealer on top of. Same with the Charlotte Tilbury, actually. If it's not too orange, sometimes I don't need to put a concealer on top of it. Having a super orange corrector can still be good if you are doing a heavier face of makeup, because the whole point of a color corrector is to cancel out the kind of blue and purple underneath your eyes so that any concealer you put on top is not going to just look gray. So it allows you to kind of maybe get away with a more lightweight hydrating concealer when you have a corrector underneath. So that's kind of my preference, is to, let me even myself out here. And that's the doe foot, by the way. My preference is to have a corrector and a concealer versus just a very heavy duty concealer, or trying to layer a concealer. So that is the corrector done. I think I still will probably go in with a concealer after I do my foundation. So speaking of foundation, like I said, I didn't pick out a Moira foundation because I didn't think, honestly, that they had a good match for me. So instead I'm going to use the Revlon Skin Caring Foundation in the shade 109. It can be a little jarring seeing yourself with like half of your eyes done essentially. Okay, so what do I want to do for concealer? So I'm trying to keep this drugstore to the extent I can. So I guess I'll try the e.l.f. Camo Concealer in the shade Fair Rose, I believe it is. So I know it seems like I'm kind of skipping around a lot, but there's kind of a method to my madness. Okay, so going in then with the, I don't know, star of the show, I guess you could say. So this is their Face Sculpt Liquid Contour, and again, I have the shades 100 Fair Light and 200 Soft Warm. I think Fair Light is going to be the one I want because it's the most cool toned. Soft Warm I also got for reference. So if you have a warmer skin tone, you may want to go more towards Soft Warm because it won't have as big a contrast on your skin. This is the KVD Light Warm 80, I believe it is. So there is definitely a difference there. I'd say this is even warmer. And then the Fair Cool 90. It's really interesting, isn't it? So it's lighter, I'd say, by a lot. Okay. So I think what I want to do now is swatch some of these for you. So obviously the Moira and the KVD both have that kind of doe foot application, but I thought it would also be helpful to include the ones that, like the Charlotte Tilbury, the product that launched 1,000 dupes, that have that kind of sponge tip applicator. So nearest my wrist, I have the shade 100 by Moira. Next to it, I have the shade 200, also by Moira. And then the next two swatches are their liquid pigment. There is 01 My Way and 02 Available. And these have a kind of flat doe foot applicator. Yeah, that's a lot more kind of, I guess, white based, probably a lot more subtle. These are called the Superhyped Liquid Pigment. Okay, so after those four Moira products, we have the shade Fair Cool 90 by KVD. And this is a more kind of, they call it a liquid gel contour, I believe. This one that I have is brand new. They do have, I think, a more sheer kind of texture to them. And then next to that, I will swatch the Charlotte Tilbury, and then I'll swatch the e.l.f. Halo Glow Contour, which is super gray again. I also have the one from Beauty Pie and the one from Flower Beauty. I don't have the one from Tarte. Hopefully that gives you some indication of kind of finish and opacity, color, tone, and everything. So those are all of the contour type shades I have to compare. And then before I wash my arm off, I'm just going to do a couple dedicated comparisons with these liquid pigments because I think it's a slightly different concept, I think. So I just want to compare those to the Danessa Myricks and the Hindash, which I think are kind of similar in theory. But yeah, that is like the doe foot style applicator. I think these are a little bit more opaque perhaps, and to be honest, I have used the Danessa Myricks and the Hindash as kind of liquid contours, but they're not always the most seamless, I guess, when it comes to blending. So those are the two Moira shades, and then this is the Hindash shade in Carve, also similar applicator. A little warmer, and then the Danessa Myricks in Nutcracker. This one has more of kind of a slanted applicator, or like a diamond shaped, I guess. So that one I think is richer compared to the others. I'm getting contour on my arm. Okay, so I hope you guys found that helpful. Let me go wash this off and we'll actually apply it to the face. And those Moira products are pretty tenacious, as you can tell. forget what was in the middle, but those didn't really stick around. But I think you can tell those pigments definitely stand up a little bit more than some of the other products. I think I'll have to use my dedicated makeup remover here. All right, I think some waterproof makeup remover finally did the trick. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply this to the face. And I'm going to take the shade 100 in the Moira. And my preferred brush for this kind of product is the BK 101 brush. It's a kind of angled foundation brush, but I like to use it for contour. Get the hair out of the way. Might have to go in with some more concealer, but anyway. Okay, so usually what I do is I'll just kind of draw it down like that to try and get rid of the double chin. And just try to make sure I blend it. So that's kind of the before and after. My skin does flush a little bit with pressure and rubbing, so. And then just kind of go down. And then a little bit on the nose. And I also try to blend upwards. And then I'll take just the kind of tip of it and try to contour my nose a little bit. It's always fun when you do half at a time, isn't it? Okay, so that is the before and after. Hopefully one looks a little bit more chiseled. Let's see, this is the Fair Cool 90 from KVD. So I'll do the same thing on the other side. Just try to knock off any excess here. Overlapping a little bit in the middle, just so it's kind of blended. Yeah, it's interesting because I'd say the Moira is a little bit more cool toned, which can be something you want with a contour especially. Yeah, let me know which one you guys prefer. Just blending a little bit of concealer in my nose. Yeah, I'd say the Moira is a little bit more kind of pigmented, depending on your preference. But for the price, I'd say it's definitely a good option. Okay, so next up I'll do the blushes and then I'll powder. For the Moira, I got the shades I Trust You and I Have You. I just hear James Earl Jones' voice in the back of my head. So pretty similar, to be honest. Okay, so the shade I Trust You is like that. It does feel a little kind of sticky, tacky. So that's the shade I Have You. You can tell I definitely kind of had a type when I was picking these out. So I will swatch them next to the Magic Hour, which in all fairness feels very similar. Looks like that finger's a bit stained. So that's Magic Hour and then Office Hours, which is probably my preferred shade. I mean, these are both a little bit more muted, and I didn't purposely kind of go in trying to find the most dead-on dupes. But yeah, the Moira ones I picked out are a lot more vibrant. It looks like they have a little less kind of sheen to them, but I'm not sure if that's just because they were on my hand like a moment longer. But yeah, anyway, the way I like to apply this type of product, so I'm going to use I Have You. So normally I'll just take my finger, kind of warm up the product, and just apply some like that, and then just use my fingers. It's very pretty, this shade. Now, if I feel like I got a little bit too carried away, I'll just take my sponge that I use from my foundation and just kind of go over, especially the edges. So definitely a good option if you were interested in that style of product and you didn't want to pay for the Tower 28, although by Sephora standards, Tower 28 is a pretty well-priced brand. But the Moira ones I think are $8.50 as opposed to $20. And of course, Moira also has discounts, like they included this in the order. It was 15% off using the code LAVibes. So you can get a little bit more off that way. And as far as the other kind of major comparison, I wanted to draw the KVD product is $29.50 as opposed to $7.50 for the Moira. So I think you can definitely get a very good face of makeup at a lower price. So I think that is it for the complexion. So going in now with the powder, very curious about this because it does have those 4 different color sections, which has been kind of popular now with that Givenchy Prisma Libra powder or whatever. But yeah, I have the shade 100 and I'm using a BK 103. So Jen Phelps specifically said she had dry skin. So I'll just start with, I guess, half my face. So a good amount of radiance still, but I think it took away some of the kind of overly shiny bit. I'm gonna use this little e.l.f. brush, which for some reason has been discontinued, and use that under the eyes, although I don't think the products I use under the eyes are like creasing too badly or anything. I usually do set my under eyes. Okay, so that is the kind of powdered, unpowdered. You can definitely see on the forehead. Yeah, so far so good. Enjoying that. And then usually what I like to do on the lower lash line also to prevent creasing is to take one of the matte shades especially that I used in the look. So I guess I'll use, I didn't use this shade, but I'm gonna use the shade Diva. The shade Modern that I used in the crease is a little bit pink. So I don't want to kind of exacerbate any appearance of redness. So I just like taking this little flat definer brush from Sonia G and just putting it right under that lower lash line to give a little bit more definition, finish off the look, and also to help prevent creasing. So I've been procrastinating long enough, so let's find that liquid liner. So it is a brush tip, says it right on the packaging, and oh, that is tiny. You guys see that? All right. And I'll just pull out, what is this? This is the Stila. It's a sample, but just by way of comparison. See how much bigger that Stila is. So I'm not gonna try anything too crazy here. I'm just gonna start like kind of right over the pupil and do any kind of wing. I'm probably gonna have to do it off camera, but yeah, that does create a nice fine line. So I'm a big fan of that. Okay, so yeah, pretty happy with that. All right, let me do the wing with both hands. Okay, so I think for me that looks pretty good. Let's try and just clean this up just a tad. Part of the issue having hooded lids, for me especially, is to try to like get the angles to match. And I feel like I try to use my eyebrows as kind of markers, but those aren't perfect either, you know, so using these little Q-tips, I feel like I can erase a lot of sins. All right, I think I'm happy enough with that. Okay, so I don't have any Moira mascaras to use, so I'll just use my Clinique Bottom Lash on the lower lashes, and then I'll curl my lashes and use the Tower 28 Make Waves mascara. I have ordered replacements for my Holy Grail Tarte Lights Camera Splashes, but it has not arrived yet, so I'm kind of using the Tower 28 as the next best thing. Okay, so I think that is it for the eyes. So let's go ahead and talk about these lip pencils. The lip oil I had on has kind of stuck around through drinking some wine. So it is, I guess, a little bit more tenacious, probably in part because it is a little bit kind of thicker. You say sticky, it always sounds bad, but yeah, it is a little bit thicker, let's say. And just fixing the corners. So I have these two lip pencils that I think are in different formulas. The Signature Lip Pencil in Berry Blossom and the Must Have Lip Liner in Rose Beige. And unfortunately for me, these are both shrink wrapped. It's not clear why they might have two different lip liner formulas, but we'll see how they swatch anyway. Okay, so the must-have lip liner in Rose Beige. It's a pencil style like that. And that is the swatch. And the signature lip pencil in Berry Blossom. Yeah, I don't know that those really feel all that different to me. I don't know if it's just a color thing. I guess I'll go with the must-have lip liner in Rose Beige. So I do have the remnants of that lip oil on, which definitely kind of helps this glide on a bit, but I'd say in general, it's probably a good product if you like being really precise with your lip liner, but it also, I think maybe I'll just fill in with this Berry Blossom shade. But I think these are still kind of decently creamy. All right, and for the two glosses I have, I think I want to go with the pinkier one since the liner is a little bit more on the brown side. So I'm going to use the shade Queenly. Yeah, definitely more on the beige side with that liner, but I mean, it is a really nice gloss. I think State of Kate compared these to the Victoria Beckham glosses, which I haven't tried. But yeah, it's just weird to me. I know they came out with the glosses first, but to me, the oils are almost a little bit more of a traditional gloss than the glosses are. Okay, so that is everything for this, I guess, nearly full face of Moira. My hair is still a little bit wet here. But yeah, I think there are definitely some gems here. And I think especially these shadow pots, I would be interested in trying more shades from. I thought the eyeshadow formula was pretty good, although this is a little bit bulky for my taste. So yeah, I wouldn't mind trying it again. I think it's a very pretty look, especially with the shadow pot on top. That one kind of brown shade threw me for a bit of a loop. The under eyes, I think, look a little dry. Let's kind of zoom you in here. And of course, that's only partly the corrector. I also had that e.l.f. concealer on. But yeah, I thought the powder was nice. The liquid liner was nice. I thought the lip products were all nice. I'll have to try the cream shadow by itself. I have a feeling it will crease on me. Yeah, so I think the takeaway for me is, and I think Moira obviously is trying to maybe come for some more expensive brands with some of their products. I think the takeaway for me is that it's not explicitly a dupe brand, but I think it's a good brand to look for if you want to achieve a higher end look on a budget. I think you can definitely do that. Honestly, the shadow pot is the one thing that I think in its own right is really kind of special to me. But yeah, I think overall the look kind of came together well, and I will continue to be interested in future releases from the brand. So I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of deep dive into Moira and my thoughts on some of their most popular products. Let me know if you've tried anything from the brand or if there's anything I didn't try that I should try out. And until next time, I hope you guys are all doing well and staying safe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.